I don't think I necessarily set out to be transformative. I think leaders can choose many things, but we cannot choose our moment in history. I like what President Obama said, that at the end of the day, we are part of a long-running story, and we just try to get our own paragraph right. So when I look at 2012 coming into the job, as with any new leader, you make an assessment about what is the state of the environment, what's going on, what are the needs of the industry, and then you realize that there were actually a lot of disruptive forces at play. So whether it's at a policy level, things were changing in Singapore, which affected manpower, or at the technology level, which is a global disruption that's affecting businesses, or even the media environment. Social media was younger then, but already catching on. So there were many things that were already changing, and I think that forces us to also change in response. So did I set out to be transformative? Not really. I mean, I set out to do my best, and that in the event meant that we had to transform and help the industry transform. So I would say our investment in the Mandai precinct is a major one, and we're very excited about it. It has the potential to be not just a major attraction from a tourism point of view, but a major institution in terms of fostering appreciation for wildlife and nature. We, I think, are always on the lookout for other opportunities where we can have major attractions development. And in our conversations with the Urban Redevelopment Authority, there is some land which is safeguarded for future development. So we will always have that pipeline, if you like, of major attractions development. So as part of urban planning, URA makes sure that there is land for the future needs of not just tourism, but also for education, for hospitals, and so on and so forth, for residential. So tourism is one area which they look at, and so we have a good conversation with the URA to ensure that we have safeguarded land for future tourism development. So that part, I think, is in place. In terms of what else, in destination refresh, I think we constantly have to look at how the purpose of visit drivers are shifting, right? What is driving people to travel? And if we find that experiences become more and more important, people are traveling for events, maybe people are traveling to participate in sports events, for example, like marathons, then I think these are things that we have to look at and adapt to ensure that Singapore's in the game. So as those purpose of visit drivers shift, I think then we also have to consider if we need to shift. Well, in our system, the STB CE reports principally to two bodies, right? First is the chairman and the board of directors of the STB, and secondly is to the Ministry of Trade and Industry. So these two bodies, the board of STB as well as the ministry, has to be very comfortable with the candidate that is being considered for the role. And once they've settled on a person, there are further internal controls within the public sector that needs to be or processes that need to be done, because the head of STB is considered a public sector leadership appointment, and so these appointments generally need then to be also endorsed by other bodies within the public sector. But principally, it is the board and the ministry, and that leads to your second question, which is is he free to do what he wants? I think he is, insofar as he is able to get the support of the chairman and the board and the support of the ministry, right? So insofar as what he's doing is aligned with what the ministry wants STB to do and what the chairman feels is the right thing to do as well, then I think he has a lot of freedom in terms of resource allocation, in terms of strategic direction, but it's about stakeholder engagement, right? And the two most important stakeholders are the board and the ministry. Of course, the industry are important stakeholders as well. They can also make their views known to the board and to the ministry. So eventually it comes back to that governance framework that we have. Length of tenure, Personally, I've always said that I think 4 to 6 years is a good length of time to serve as STB CE, because it takes a few years, especially for someone like me who came from outside of the sector, to get to know the sector and to learn about it and to familiarize myself with the leaders of the industry, and gain their trust, right, before we can start doing some of these important work. Well, I sometimes ask myself whether I could have moved even faster in terms of the transformation, either internally or externally. But it is really a hypothetical question, because you move as fast as you can. You move as fast as sometimes your stakeholders are prepared to let you as well. But it is a question that I think about from time to time. So, I really like bak chor mee, but I have not been to that Tai Hwa hawker for bak chor mee, despite of all the promotion that we have done for the Michelin Awards. I have not. My father has been. In fact, he's been going for many years now, and he laughs at me. He says, "Oh, you mean you haven't had time to go?" So when I have more time, you will find me in the queue for Tai Hwa bak chor mee. I think I may not miss being on vacation and then still thinking about work.
Yes.
I think it's kind of an occupational hazard for many of us in the industry, that we are constantly appraising a tourism product or a service, because we are in the business. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to rid myself of that lens. I'm open to opportunities in the private sector, including in the travel and tourism industry.